uncertainty, many people are wondering if the nation's priorities are in the right place. Let's break down this intense showdown and see how Isaiah Martin pushes back against Emily Austin's arguments on CNN's Table for Five.
I would push back on that a little bit. What you call the slush fund, I find to call the anti-weaponization fund. And I'm sure on both sides of the aisle, we all have friends whose lives have been absolutely ruined, whether they were innocent. And you said that this is going to people who assaulted police officers on January 6th. It could, but the truth is we don't know where this money's going yet. And I feel like we're always prematurely just very negative when it comes to anything that President Trump wants to do. But I view this as something very altruistic. Trump did not take the money and put it in his pocket like he could have and like most people probably would have done. And instead, he wants to help those people who were absolutely destroyed by the weaponization of the government. I have friends who declared bankruptcy over proving they're innocent, that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, some millions, to avoid spending time in jail, and they don't get that money back. Why can't we help those people?
Well, there lies the root of the problem. You just said the very simple fact that we're not going to know exactly who gets this money. I know that there was this testimony inside of the United States Congress in which they said that there's really no rules behind what's going to happen. So I think that it's absolutely absurd that there's going to be a fund that's $1.8 billion. We don't know where the money's going to go through.
Yes.
And honestly, we don't know if we'll ever know who the money's going to go to. You don't think that that's absurd, that like the president of the United States can create a fund and divvy payments to people and we don't know who the money goes to?
I mean, we know that it's going to people who have been weaponized by the government. Now, whether that goes to, like you said, January 6th protesters or people like James Comey, who I find is guilty, we don't know yet. So why don't we wait
and see
before we are outrageous?
Going to give James Comey a payout for wrongful prosecution as they're trying to prosecute him. That doesn't seem like.
But that is the root of the root of the issue.
Yeah, but
the root of the issue is that we will never know.
People in this country who have been wronged by the law have already
that's what they said.
Have legal pathways to seek justice for that. And you know what you said, Trump could have just taken the money. No, he can't just take the money because we live in a. Yes, because I
want to ask this question because Emily, you were saying Trump didn't benefit. What about this piece, this other piece
settlement
of this,
with himself
about the
that he negotiated with himself?
Settle that.
He is the government.
But I want to ask about the IRS not being able to prosecute him or his family over taxes forever. What do you think about that?
Obviously, optically, it looks horrendous. I think anybody can.
Because it is horrendous.
Anyone can admit that. But there's also an unprecedented amount of persecution when it comes to the Trump and the Trump family. There has never been a president that has been persecuted as much as Donald Trump, whether it's illegally releasing his IRS, which I'm happy he's sitting 5 years in jail because that would never be tolerated under anyone else. But it's just the target on President Trump personally. It's outrageous.
Jeff Bezos also had.
If we're being fair, whenever the federal government sets up a $1.88 billion fund without clearly explaining who qualifies, who controls the process, and how the money will actually be distributed, people are going to have concerns. That's not about politics, it's about accountability. Americans have seen enough over the years to know that questions are justified whenever large amounts of public money are involved. No matter which party is in charge, government programs often come under scrutiny when transparency is missing. Whether it's emergency relief spending, government contracts, or special funding initiatives, taxpayers want to know exactly where their money is going. And when billions of dollars are involved, those questions become even more important. Another key point is that there are already legal systems in place for individuals who have genuinely suffered because of government actions. Many states offer compensation for wrongful convictions, lawsuits can be filed against government agencies, and federal courts provide legal pathways for people seeking damages. These systems certainly have flaws, but they still operate under established laws and independent review. What makes many people uneasy is the possibility of political judgment entering the process. When government officials begin deciding which groups receive special compensation outside the normal legal framework, it can quickly lead to accusations of favoritism and unequal treatment. Even if the goal is well-intended, the perception can create serious problems. Then there's the economic reality facing millions of Americans. Families across the country are still struggling with expensive housing, rising medical costs, higher insurance bills, and the growing challenge of making ends meet. When people are worried about paying their monthly expenses, it's natural for them to question how billions can suddenly be found for a new fund, while leaders continue saying resources are limited for other urgent priorities. The concerns surrounding the IRS debate touch on a similar issue. The question isn't whether Trump or any other public figure should face investigations. The bigger issue is whether the same standards are being applied equally to everyone. Once people begin to feel that powerful political figures are treated differently from ordinary citizens, trust in the system starts to fade, and rebuilding that confidence becomes much harder.
His tax returns illegally released.
And that's
so
also
should he
bad.
be entitled to $2 billion? Where does this stop?
If he wants
are we
to
gonna be
sue,
saying,
he absolutely has the
so
right
are we going
to.
to say that for every single person that they should all be
They have
entitled
the right
to
to
$2 billion?
sue, but I
But
also think
none of them or
whatever
the
they
president
settle
of the
on.
United States can negotiate with
But them
themselves.
and the president, to me, have equal treatment. If Bezos wants
Equal
to sue,
treatment?
if
It's the
Bezos
president
wants to
of the
sue and
United
president
States
wants
that's
to sue,
negotiating
they have
his
been
own
wrong.
settlement.
Well, and let's
Clearly,
keep
there's
in
a
mind,
case
guys,
Go ahead,
getting the
Elizabeth.
money.
there is in this moment in the country, people are struggling. There is real financial and economic hardship right now. People's healthcare costs are going up. Inflation, gas prices are between $5 and $6 a gallon. Is this the best use of government resources?
Of
I
course
don't know
not.
any conservative who could argue that this is how we should be using this money.
I mean, I argue it goes back to
and here's the
people.
context. This is a pattern of the President of the United States pilfering from the national coffers to serve his own political and personal ends. We have the Board of Peace, billions of dollars of taxpayer money without any congressional authorization or oversight. You know, you've got all of the stock trades that he's made, $750 million worth of stock trades on issues that he's adjudicating. This is a level of self-dealing and corruption that no one has seen before, and you have to view this slush fund in that context because
If there was
it's
ever-
obvious that he's doing it for political reasons and that the lawsuit against the IRS
and by
was a sham lawsuit that was never moving forward anyway.
I'm just going
It
to
was
say
just
this.
a thinly veiled excuse to pay off his own political
If President
benefactors.
Obama sued his own department, his own IRS, and settled with himself, I guarantee you that you and every conservative on Fox would be running around screaming for impeachment. You guys would be trying to throw him in alligator Alcatraz.
Actually, one thing I will
That's
pat
what you would
myself
want.
on the back for is I know bipartisanly when something is wrong or not. I'm not the person that's like, oh, every Democrat's wrong and every Republican's right. That's something that you cannot
And a president
generalize.
negotiating
If that
with
happened
himself?
to Obama, by the way, anyone who's wronged, the law is the same, whether you're the president or not.
But
If
he's the
somebody
one that's
did leak
negotiating the
Obama's
settlement.
tax
Why can't
returns,
we-
he
He's
should
negotiating
sue.
with himself.
we
No one
could
else has that
simply-
ability. You cannot compare him to other billionaires, to other people, to other
And other
people on
presidents
earth,
who have not
because
been as
he's the one that
persecuted as Donald
dictates the
Trump.
terms
You're right.
of his own
This never
settlement.
happened before.
If we could just get a commitment from the administration that not a single dollar would go to somebody who assaulted a police officer,
I agree
we
with
could
you.
begin a conversation. Maybe I still wouldn't support it, but some Republicans in the Senate might. But we couldn't even get that from the Deputy Attorney General.
Yeah,
A commitment
he
that
did not
leaders
say
of the
that.
Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers might not get $1 million settlements to then what, fund domestic terrorism?
And then, Alyssa, we also won't get the names of the people at all.
Correct.
So we'll never be able to verify anything.
There's not a lot of
There's
transparency.
a lot. Before we go on, can we please talk about this ballroom? Because I'm yet to understand the outrage. Because I know, and I know because I'm fascinated by it, that Truman, for example, brought the bowling alley, and Roosevelt brought a swimming pool, and now Trump is contributing a ballroom that's privately funded. I'm going to add, not taxpayer funded, and I just don't.
he just
see
asked for the-
why
It's
they are
not
Did you
so.
not see what was
his
in the
biggest
bill?
don't.
The reconciliation
For the
bill?
$1
Did you see
billion.
the $1 billion?
That's the one thing that
Every
they're mad
single
about.
president
Right.
is bringing something to the White House, and
$1
when
billion
Trump
of
does it,
taxpayer
it's
funds?
orange man bad.
$1 billion of taxpayer
when
funds
it was
for a ballroom?
originally
Here's what many people are struggling to understand. When the average American has an issue with the IRS, they don't get the opportunity to help shape a settlement, they don't get to select the officials making decisions, and they don't get any special influence over the process. That's why this situation is raising so many questions. The concern isn't simply about whether someone was treated fairly or unfairly. It's about whether the rules are being applied equally to everyone. And that's an important issue because history has shown how easily public confidence can be damaged when people believe different standards exist for different groups. From the very beginning, America's system of government was designed to limit concentrated power. The founders created checks and balances to prevent conflicts of interest. Congress was given authority over spending. Oversight mechanisms were established, and transparency requirements were put in place to make sure government actions could be examined by the public. Another factor driving concern is the steady decline in trust across major institutions. Over the past several years, polls have consistently shown that many Americans have become more doubtful of government agencies, Congress, large corporations, and even the media. A growing number of people feel that those with influence often operate under a different set of rules than ordinary citizens. When a multi-billion-dollar fund is introduced without clear standards, detailed oversight, or a transparent process, it naturally adds to those concerns. That's why the call for transparency continues to resonate. Whenever public money is being spent, Taxpayers deserve clear answers about where that money is going and who ultimately benefits. That's not a political talking point, it's a basic expectation. Conservatives pushed for accountability during pandemic spending. Progressives have demanded accountability when it comes to defense budgets and corporate incentives, and the same principle should apply in this situation. At the same time, many of these political debates feel disconnected from the challenges people face every day. Across the country, housing costs remain painfully high, medical expenses continue rising, and credit card balances are reaching new records. Most Americans aren't sitting around focused on political victories or losses in Washington. They're focused on stretching their paychecks, covering essential expenses, buying groceries, and making sure they can keep up with the bills that arrive each month.
Going $1 we know it's not going to
That's what he asked for.
Originally, he did say it was going to be corporate sponsors, which I had enough of an issue with because it makes it seem like the White House is for sale. But at least it wouldn't.
But why was it okay when other presidents built?
Well, they went through a congressional appropriation. So you request from Congress, we want the funding to do this. Congress votes, and then they build it. If Congress wants to vote on it and they do, that's fine. I could actually argue the case for a ballroom. Oftentimes, state dinners are done on the South Lawn if you want to increase security, but go through Congress. You can't just build it yourself.
I have a question. Where did the $400 million of donor money go? What made this president go and ask Congress for $1 billion? I thought he raised $400 million for it. Where'd it go?
However, I'm not personally responsible for Trump's fundraising money. That would be a great job.
If I could get in on this issue in the Senate. So this is fascinating right now. Senators are obviously upset over this, what I'm going to call slush fund. But what they're really mad about is the fact that Donald Trump endorsed against John Cornyn, one of the most beloved Republican senators, a monster fundraiser, the #2 in the Senate, in favor of Ken Paxton, who is somebody who could arguably lose to James Tallarico. Like, one of the only people who could turn Texas blue is Ken Paxton. So senators are outraged. If you're Susan Collins, as we saw in Maine, that's money that's going to go from your must-win seat to have to fight in Texas, a place that you shouldn't. Donald Trump is rock solid with the base. There's never been a more popular figure with the Republican base in 50 years, but he has a terrible track record when it comes to picking people who then go on to win the general election. I could go on, but I mean, the Herschel Walkers of it, the Blake Masters, the Kerry Lakes, he finds these people who are great with the base. Yeah, exactly. He lost 2 Georgia Senate seats. So that's what it comes down to. He also does not perform as well in midterms when he's not at the top of the ticket to lift up other candidates. And senators are rightly upset about it.
I mean, I think historically midterms never favor the president, and that's beyond the Trump problem. But when it comes to who Trump's endorsing or not endorsing, yes, in the primaries, it's like, yeah, Trump is king. He has the final word there. But when it comes to the actual election, that's where you appreciate the individualism. And when the state speaks for itself, whether I like the result or not, that's democracy. You know, you're going to win on ideas.
Right.
I think a lot of the reasons Republicans are winning is because Democrats lately have horrific ideas.
Republicans have lost 14 straight state elections, and they're heading toward a bloodbath. And Donald Trump
I was talking about the primaries.
They're winning their own primaries because those are just between Republicans. Yeah. They tend to win primaries.
Yeah, Republicans lost Miami mayor's race.
But yes, the Trump people are winning, but that's not, and they're not all the same. You know,
Miami had no Republican representation, but okay.
Hang on, one at a time. One at a time.
Let's separate out the Thomas Massie thing, because that wasn't just Trump. $25 million of Republican donor money from outside of Kentucky flew into that small district, and that was Trump plus a huge faction of the Republican Party that wanted Matt. So put that one to the side. What Alyssa is saying about Cornyn and Cassidy is that Trump is at war with the leadership of the Senate Republicans, and the party is eating itself right at the worst possible time, and he's creating more scandals that they either have to defend or disavow, which is a Sophie's choice for them, in the middle of their most vulnerable position. Now, during the primaries, they have to care how they look. They have to care about the scandals more than any time else, and Trump is ramping up the scandals to 11 because he knows that the window for the grift might close if Democrats take over both chambers.
The facts paint a pretty clear picture. Republicans entered the 2022 election cycle with what many believed was a favorable Senate map. Yet several high-profile candidates, including Herschel Walker, Mehmet Oz, Blake Masters, and Don Bolduc, either struggled throughout their campaigns or ultimately came up short in races that many Republican strategists initially viewed as very winnable. The issue wasn't a lack of energy or support from Republican voters. The bigger challenge was that candidates who connected strongly with the MAGA base often found it more difficult to attract enough support from independent voters and moderates in a statewide election. That's why many Senate Republicans become uneasy when a well-established incumbent is replaced by a more polarizing candidate. The concern goes beyond ideology and focuses on one key question: can that candidate actually win a general election? Political landscapes are changing rapidly, and states such as Texas, Arizona, and Georgia are far more competitive today than they were 10 years ago because of shifting demographics and changing voter coalitions. Funding also plays a major role in the equation. Campaign budgets are not unlimited, and every dollar spent protecting a seat that should normally be safe is a dollar that cannot be invested in a true battleground race. Strategists from both parties understand this reality.